how our soil health functioning. It's actually well, yeah, that's what I would do. No, somewhere. Anyway. This is yeah. Stop by the beauty shop.
I'm glad you're
I just
back.
asked him how much they charged.
That's so good.
And the scale said,
Is the music a problem in the background, or is it just background?
sounds fun.
Is it okay as long as you can,
Everybody
hear
okay?
it, just nice, relaxing music, no sleeping? We still have some gathering, so if you want another cup of coffee or anything, now's the chance to go grab, whatever you need. It's nice to see you all. Is everybody having a very busy May? I couldn't possibly have any more trips than we're having. It's every weekend we're gone. We've done a wedding shower, and then we had a graduation. The wedding is coming up, and then a baby shower for another granddaughter. Yes, our first grandbaby, great grandbaby. So anyway, so we're busy. I don't even know what time zone I'm in today, so bear with me. Who knows what and please, those of you that are on the committee, raise your hand if I've forgotten something, because it's possible. Who knows what I'll do. Join me in prayer to start. Dear Father, life often brings us distractions and troubles. We become anxious, Lord. May the Holy Spirit lead us to prayer, to you. Keep our faith strong, knowing that you love us and will listen to our prayers. Be with those who are not with us this afternoon, and for those that are. Open our eyes and ears to the beauty around us as we listen to our guest reviewers. In Christ's name, amen. First of all, Shelley, thank you for the first. I'm going to thank you. Then you can get it. Thanks for the refreshments. That's very good. Listen. She insisted we cut it. I said it was too pretty a cake, and we were not going to cut it. We were just going to look at it, and that was enough. Okay, now you're on, Shelley.
I do have the finalized list of books that we'll be reading next year, and so I hope everyone got a new copy. I added for May a suggestion from Suzanne West, Dreams and Visions, is Jesus Awakening the Muslim World? And so I've read half of it, and it's very good. Each chapter is a different story, and Suzanne enjoyed it very much. So this will be our May read, and I will be looking into a reviewer for this who maybe ministers to the Muslim world or has some connection to the Muslim world that will bring some good perspective for us. And the other change we had is that we'll now read The Women by Kristen Hanna in January. And our reviewer for that will be Brooke Ingold. And she was part of her career was a nurse with the Army Nurse Corps for 28 years. She did not serve in Vietnam, but she served in Thailand during that time. And then was a nurse here at Brooke Army after the war, towards the end of the war, and cared for many of the soldiers coming back. So I think she'll bring a great perspective for that. So January was better for her, so we switched the January and February reads. So I hope you all enjoy some good summer reading, and thank you for your suggestions, and your patience as we put this list together.
Yeah, a big thank you to Shelley. It's a big job. She has read, how many, would you want to just estimate how many books you've read this year, looking for those 9?
Probably 20.
I think
But
it's
some of
twice
them,
that.
some of them you can tell pretty quick. It might not be the best read for our group, but anyway. There are a lot of good books out there, but we just have to find the exact right ones for our reading.
So the list is back there, and there's some up here on the table as well. Be sure and pick it up so you can get started. Morgan, do you know how we're doing in the library? Have we started getting books in?
We have most of the books in, they're available for checkout. As you walk out, they're at the far side of windows. Under the
In our
posters
same
window.
location?
Yes, same location, we get some new posters made, and feel free to check them out. If you need any help, I'll be here after this meeting for a little bit.
That's great. Wow, that's efficiency. Let's hear a hand for the library. Okay, next I am going to, this is your last chance. Whatever mistakes are in the book are going to remain if you don't get it corrected today, because I've got this month to get them all turned in. Ellen is going to turn in the membership list for this group. I've done the writing about it and got that turned in. The pen is turns right up to 13, and when you open it to check yours, you will also see once more the notice on the May coffee that is this week. So if you want, pick one up and think about it. So I'm going to start it around. Please don't set it down. Please make sure everybody gets it, because this is, and you can make the correction right in the book. And I know, like Jane, you need to make a correction. And I know Ellen keeps on top of it as we go through the year. But this, I want to make sure we've got information that's correct, as close as we can come, so that when it comes out, we've got everything right. Okay, I would like for Ellen, Jane, Shelley, stand up again. These are the ladies that do all the work in this group. Here they are, right here. They take care of the money, they take care of the food, they take care of publicity, they do the reading. I mean, they keep this group going, and I just want to thank them. If I don't thank you every month, I should. So thank you very much.
And for your leadership.
It's a joy. There's a little bag for you on the back table, so you look for your name and pick it up before you leave today. Okay, now moving on to the next important thing on the program. I'd like to tell you about, well, this is a great honor to have our speakers with us today. We have Brent Evans. He is a retired social worker, a retired executive director of Cibolo Conservatory for Land Trust, co-founder of the Center for Conservation, as well as author. He has received the Texas Environmental Excellence Award for his work developing the Kendall County Park System. And as a matter of fact, December the 27th has been named Brent Evans Day in Kendall County in recognition of 50 years of volunteerism.
Well deserved. Well deserved.
I'm sure. John Freud took up nature photography in retirement, and he serves as president of the board of directors of the Cibolo Center for Conservation, where all profits from his photographic art are donated. When I asked for ideas of what they would both like me to say today, I just need to share with you what John shared. 4 things: good wine, golf, photography, and friends. You
Not
covered a lot there.
necessarily in that order.
So, without further ado, let me turn the mic over to these gentlemen. I don't know who's speaking first or what, but
Well, hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. You think it goes up a little bit, eh? Maybe if I point it forward a little bit more? How's that?
Perfect.
Is that better? All right. Well, thank you for having me. And I'm hoping that music won't go on because my hearing aids will really amplify it in my head. But anyway.
I'll leave it to you.
Thank you. So I should tell you a little bit about me, but on the other hand, that would be all about me. So, any questions? No questions? Well, then thank you very much. This project started, probably at the beginning of my life, really, when you start to think about how do you explain a segment of your life, and you start realizing all the accidental, maybe, things that happen. But I was born and raised in the Sierras, up around Lake Tahoe area, and so I always was connected with nature. And then the Army got me, and I was a captain, and John was too. Now, our war experience was a little different. He was humping it over in the bush while I was over in Fort Sill talking to the guys about their feelings. But it's the same level of courage. That's what I want you to know. It was that level of courage that got me through the Army. But one thing I learned was, with guys coming back from that awful experience, was they told me that the thing that helped them most was not therapy and counseling and talking about it. It was going to the Wichita Mountain Wildlife Refuge and watching the buffalo and the prairie dogs. That helped them settle themselves down. And I started realizing what kind of a healing power it could be just to be in nature. Well, being a social worker later on in Kendall County, I was working with kids that were in trouble, emotionally disturbing children, right? And sometimes they'd have community service. And when they'd come over to the nature center to do the service, we'd plant a tree or something. And these rough and tough guys would say, God, I've never worked so hard in all my life. And I'd be thinking, yeah, I can believe that. But then after the tree was planted and everything was done, they'd start saying, better nobody mess with my tree. And the magic works. Well, so back in 1988, my wife and I heard that this little park in Bernie, there was rumors that the city wanted to turn it into a golf course or maybe sell some of it off. It was a fire hazard because the grass was high. And my wife, Carolyn, well, she's a HERF, HERFF. And she said, my family owned that land once, and I've got family diaries. And she started reading them, and we started visiting there. Well, we walked down through the prairie, and there's a barn swallow. We kind of led the way down the creek, and we get down there, and oh my gosh, there is a gallery of giant bald cypress. Typical Texas riparian zone, but absolutely dazzling. Fish darting around, birds flitting in the trees, and the cypress in all their grandeur, this ancient species of tree. And we just felt like, oh my God, it's a secret garden. This is a place that should be regarded as sacred by the community. Well, kids were driving their pickups down there and changing their oil in the creek because it would wash away, right? And we realized this is a place in need of protection. And so we started trying to figure out, how do we do that? Well, so Carolyn, my dear wife, who is a spark plug, well, she went down to City Hall, and of course, they passed her around like a hot potato from one office to another. And finally, she lands in the office of Chris Turk, the Parks Department Director. And she says, how about we turn that park into nature trails? He says, sure, okay. What? Shouldn't we talk to city council? And he says, well, how many opinions do you want? That was our first lesson in local politics. Talk to the staff, not to the politicians, right? And so we started nature trails. And then we started writing a little column in the local paper, showing pictures of children visiting in nature. There's something powerful about watching a child in nature, because they get on their face the look of a sense of wonder that is so contagious, so dramatic, that by gosh, more and more people started coming down to the park. Teachers started bringing their classes down. We found an old building in Bernie and moved it out to be our office and our everything, our little shop, our little visitor center, and so on. And Carolyn built that little nonprofit for me and her doing programs out of the back of my pickup into what's the budget now, John?
Now the budget's over 4 million.
So a $4 million budget a year, and that's not state or city money. It's private donations. 40 employees. And there's a nature school, preschool, with little kids that spend half of their time out in nature. And there's a farm where we have demonstration gardens on how to grow your own food. And by the way, I'm the chicken master. So I've been raising chickens for 50 years. And I've learned that they're great comic relief. And the food they provide, I mean, you give chickens your garbage and they give you breakfast. Now you show me a better economy than that, right? And people complain about the price of eggs. Are you kidding me? What does 2 eggs cost? And what does it give you? A really great high protein meal in a biodegradable package, right? I mean, people should be happily spending 4 times as much. I mean, show me where you get that high quality protein food for the price people pay for eggs. Of course, trouble is that most chickens live in awful conditions in these big factories. So if you buy eggs, by the way, get the kind where, the chickens are pasture raised. Because then they're eating a variety of foods, and then the eggs stand up in the pan, and the yolk is orange instead of yellow, and you're getting good food. Anyway, that's what we're doing at the farm, is we're teaching people how to grow their own food. People are taking out their backyards. Shoot, in 1943, I think it was, the United States, the citizens got 40% of their nutrition out of their victory gardens. People could be growing food in these yards where they're growing turf that they complain about having to mow, And gardening is the healthiest activity you can do. So anyway, that's some of the propaganda that we push. Well, how did this come to pass? Well, what we found was that the idea of a locally grown, community-based nature center, where it's not run by politicians or the city or the state, it's run by private individuals, which means they're answerable to the donors, right? And the donors expect results. This is not a paper program. You guys better do what you say you're going to do. And so what it creates is this sense of community where people want to serve on the board. And what unites it all is a passion for nature. And there's about every point of view you can imagine. Political, religious, doesn't matter. There's a passion for nature that seems to bring people together that is absolutely wonderful. And now, we're surrounded by people who are experts, biologists, botanists. Now me, I really dig nature, but I just don't get the nomenclature, if you know what I mean. I mean, learning all these names, all these plants, my mind doesn't work that way. But I don't have to, because we've got experts that know all that stuff. So, in this little community of nature-minded people, there's all kinds of points of view, but there's one point of view, which is that in the hill country, there is threat. Because it's right now, land values are booming. Next 15 years, 40% of lands will change hands. And when it does, what happens? The children that inherit this land, what are they going to do with it? Well, it's harder and harder to make the land profitable by raising cattle or hay. So what do? If they sell it for dense development, that's where they get the most money. And so land fragmentation is happening, ranchets are happening, and I drive through the hill country and there's all these billboards now that are popping up with these stern-faced personal injury lawyers telling you they can save you and all this commercial stuff. I just got back from Italy and they don't have that going on there, And so it's infecting the hill country. And if you go to Canyon Lake, it's 50% down. That's Canyon Lake, which is feeding a lot of these communities like Bernie their water. And so there's no question about how much water is really in the Trinity and the Edwards aquifers that can continue to feed these ever-expanding, ambitious enterprises. All right? And the idea is short-term profit versus long-term thinking. It's not just about the beauty of the hill country. It's my gosh, at my house, my well has gone down every year for the last 40 years. So it's 40 feet from where we started 40 years ago. There's some places that have lost hundreds of feet. And so the point is that some of the hill country needs to be saved. And in the last chapter of this book called Epilogue, you'll see where Kendall County did in fact pass a $20 million bond election just to help save some water resource land. Critical land where you've got water pouring in, to the aquifers to try to preserve what lands we can. Now, it's a drop in the bucket, really, but on the other hand, it also inspires other landowners to think about where their water is going. Do we really need to have these expansive lawns that use so much water, more than the house uses, And what about rain catchment? Well, that's actually a booming business right now in the hill country, where folks can set up their houses and they're catching rain, and they can either purify it if they want and drink it, or if they like mineral water like I do, I like water that comes out of the ground. But they can use that for everything else. Flushing their toilets, watering whatever they want to water for their gardens. That rain is great. Gardens love rain. You look after rain, go outside and look at what's going on. All the plants are greener than they were an hour ago, it seems, So, anyway, I think the experience of doing this work, for me, has been enormously rewarding. And again, well, what I get to do, for example, is I take a baby chicken and put it in a child's hand. And when you do that, the look of wonder on that child's face is so phenomenal that the parent standing next to the child gets a sense of wonder. Well, then I get a sense of wonder, It's contagious. There's something that's magical and spiritual and indescribable if you open your heart to it in nature. And my buddy John is somehow able to capture that through his photography. And folks will look at the book and they'll say, "Oh my God, what a beautiful book." And I'll say, "Yeah, the words aren't bad either, It is a beautiful book, but it's not just pretty pictures. It's deeper than that. It's deeper than that. It has to go with the heart of people that have been doing these projects. It's heart stuff. And so what we do is try to expose people to experience in nature. and remind people how important nature is. Being a social worker, I know about studies at housing projects. I've worked at really housing projects where a lot of violence, crime going on in these projects. And the ones that have trees around them have much less violence than the ones that are just surrounded by concrete. Now explain that to me, Mr. Science. Why is that? Far more violence when there's no trees. Well, I think that somehow we're connected with nature. We are part of nature. And the point is that in our culture, we're divorced from nature. We live in air-conditioned boxes, drive in air-conditioned cars. How much time do we actually spend outdoors? How many minutes? Average child gets, in America, average student, 7 minutes a day. 7 hours in front of a screen. What's happening to those kids? I don't know about you, when I was a kid, my parents would say, get outside and come back when it's dark, right? And I used to think, how unfair. Now I think, thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. What a gift. What a gift it was. In Finland, which is not evidently the highest education scores in the world, their children spend 4 hours a day at school and no homework. Because they want those children to be children. When kids come to the nature center, what used to happen is teachers would bring them, and the teachers would not know how to deal with the kids in nature. The kids would pile on a bus, they'd go down the street, and they're pushing each other in the water, throwing around each other, and the teachers going, oh children, and so we were scratching, what can I do to get these kids' attention and set some boundaries and also help appreciate where they are? And so I decided we need the creature from the Black Lagoon to swim up and talk to those kids. And my wife says, gentler, Brent, gentler. And so, okay. I found out there's a mythical character called Green Man. And you've seen him in architecture, half human, half plant. Perfect. So I got an old army sniper outfit with leaves and everything, painted my face green, and would swim up the creek and come out of the water and say, I speak for the creek. Now, what I learned the first time I did it is we should have warned the kids. Because I really did actually freak a few kids out pretty bad. And so, next time we always say, okay, kids, there's a guy in a costume gonna swim up and talk to it. He's pretending to be a creature, and then it was okay. And I made up this poetry. And then I made it into a coloring book. And the poetry goes something like this. I'll give you just a little peek of how it was I came to speak for all who fly or swim or creep or grow along my magic creek. Now you might think I really can't be a person and a plant. Well, here's why I pulled up my roots and stuck them in the hiking boots. Before most people came to know this place, where children get to go, there were mountain lion and bear and buffalo. Now all these animals are gone. They're gone somewhere else to sing their song. Their habitat was in demand. The humans needed so much land. Seminole Valley's lost, we feared. But then a group of friends appeared. Well, they planted trees that would remain, and they watered them with saved up rain. And they helped the prairie grasses grow. And they saved the woods where the wild things grow. They worked to keep the creekside clean, and they let the marsh be a marsh again. They used this place, and they used it well for a kind of show and tell, showing people how to care for stuff like water, soil, and air. And so I thought, well, I'll do my part. I know exactly where I'll start. I'll tell the children when they go outdoors to look for all the watch out for. And I'll help the friends to save more ground, like that old railway that they found, and like the floodplain, and like the farm, keeping some things safe from harm. And I'll ask each and every guest to tread softly and act their best to pick up litter and leash their dogs and hush to hear the hymns of frogs. I'll plant a dream deep in their heart of peaceful places set apart, where nature lives on, green and free, with elbow room for you and me. And when all the people leave the park, and all the day returns to dark, the moon will waken us below and celebrate the Cibolo. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I would enjoy the heck out of doing. And the kids would be so spellbound, and then I'd say, so here's the deal. Number one, this is our creek. This is the lifeblood of the planet. We depend on this creek for everything, our water, our lives. We have to be kind to the creek. And I want you to be kind to every living thing in the creek, the birds and the fish and the frogs and the plants. And I want you to be kind to each other. You got a deal? Do I say we got a deal? You know? Okay, because I'm going to be watching. And you don't want me to talk to you if you're messing up, right? Okay, so don't mess up. And you guys have a great time. And I want you to go find something that is absolutely amazing. Just find something that's amazing. And that's how I got to play Green Man. And that was a blast. And, I think I may have a copy of that coloring book. Also through the years, I was also able to write a couple other books. After about 10 years, we were being successful, and so we were asked to write a book on how to start a nature center by the University of Texas in Austin Press. And so we did, and this is the second edition. In fact, it's even been published in Japanese. It's so weird to see your words in Japanese. Same pictures, but funny little scribblings. We went to Japan to talk about nature centers, and of course, that culture is very focused on nature. You know these Japanese gardens, and they always have a gate that looks like the letter I, 2 posts and a lintel. You know what I mean? You know what that is? It's called a torii, Torii. And their culture says that when you walk through the torii, you're asked to leave all worldly concerns behind, so that you can open your heart to poetic inspiration. Not bad. Not bad. Because, in fact, that's the kind of thing we suggest to people when they come to Nature Center. Leave your concern behind. You're in nature now. Just let it go. You'll get back to it. You're obsessed with your worries anyway. Don't worry about forgetting them. But in the meantime, let it go. And let yourself be affected by the life around you. If there's anything sacred on this planet, I think it's life itself. So that was an amazing experience to go to Japan. And they wanted to start some nature centers in the area that tsunami came and destroyed. Because you want to put houses back there, what do you do with it? On the other hand, nature centers can actually be monetary engines for a little community. So anyway, that was the experience. And we wrote that book. Then I got to write the History of Birdie book, and that was another blast. because I got to talk to old families about the old times in Bernie. And so if anybody's a Hill Country person, I brought a few of these books also from Bernie in case you're interested in that. Now, oh yeah, also, how are we doing for time? Because I don't want to, make it sit too long. How am I doing for time here, my leaders? And what?
Perfect.
Does that mean I should stop now?
Talk as long as you thought.
Well, I'm not gonna go too much longer because I know what it's like to have to listen to somebody. I would much prefer talk than listen myself. So, but let me find out now. Any questions yet? Come on, think about it.
What do you do now?
What do you do now?
What do you do now?
Oh, what do I do now? Yeah, well, I'm continuing to write. And what I do now is I've got my audience down to my 100 closest friends. And so I write stories that are more personal. Stories I don't want everybody to know. But I'll tell you what, I was real bad sick a year and a half ago, real bad sick. And everybody thought I was dying. In fact, when they published the last copy of the colored book, they put a dedication into me, and it reads just like an obit. It's perfect. I got to read my own obituary, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful. I would encourage you all to ask folks to write it down. It was great. And so I do that. And I mess with my grandkids. I've also built a rocket ship. Now I know there's going to be those of you who doubt that, but I have built a rocket ship. It's in my backyard. Its length is about from me to maybe that farthest lady over there if I'm standing over
End
here.
of that wall.
And it's laying down, and I've built it with junk, but really good junk. So it's reused items. And my rule is to spend no more than $5 on something unless it's way cool. And so with that in mind, I got the rocket ship. Then I bought a crazy boat that, I'm a social worker. I don't have a lot of money, right? I mean, social workers are the lowest paid master's degree in the country. I'm proud of that. That's pretty good. So anyway, I got a boat for $800, and it's a yacht. It's 20 feet long. It needs lots of work, but what else I have to do? So I'm working on fixing up my 20-foot silly boat. So I'm trying not to take things too serious, because again, in my life, I've had to take a lot of things very seriously. And so these days, what I'm learning is that the world is full of gravity. And so the one thing that can combat gravity is levity. Levity. And so I'm trying to continue to find the things that we can laugh about and find those moments of wonder, especially with children, because I think that is what needs to guide us to what we need to do in our future with children, is help them have more appreciation for nature, and in so doing, they will take care of the planet. People take care of things they love, but if they're not experiencing nature, how are they going to vote? They're going to vote to get rid of national parks. Who needs that? Right? I mean, my gosh. The one thing that the United States has done better than any nation in the world is save its sacred places. Protect them. So that everybody gets to enjoy it. It's the most democratic thing. It doesn't matter. Anybody can afford to go to a national park. I'm very passionate about that. And So, it's no apology. We need to be creating more places, local places, where children can experience, and it doesn't have to be expansive wilderness, a little park. I was the crisis counselor for the Brent Independent School District. And when I would tell some kid that was going through a bunch of baloney, that I was part of the nature center, they'd say, "Oh my God, the nature center saves my life." I go out there when I'm feeling like, that's it, I've had it. And I go out there, and it settles me right down. The nature center is like 100 acres. 1 acre, a half an acre, a backyard even, can really bring some peace to somebody who's all stirred up with the social craziness that can go on. So, that's what I'm preaching. And I'm saying the more nature centers, the better, the more parks, the better. The more we encourage people to get outside, the better. The more we give kids books and parents books that help them remember their connection with nature, the better. And the more we have photographers that are willing to go out there and capture that stuff, the better. So, with that in mind, I would like to introduce to you my wonderful partner and friend, the photographer of this book, John Freud.
You know, Brent, if I had known you painted your face in green and came out of the water and scared the heck out of little innocent kids, I'm not sure I would have co-produced this book. Let's see, I'll get up there. First of all, thank you. I agree with Brent. Thank you very much for having us here. My background a little bit. My wife and I came here in '06, Bernie, outside Bernie. And I retired in '09. And I didn't know what to do, but I had a guy that retired before me who was an A personality. And I asked him, "What's your secret to retirement?" Because he seemed to enjoy it. I can see that some of you have retired, some of you probably haven't, but it doesn't matter. He told me, "John," he said, "I'll tell you one thing, treat retirement like your job." So you gotta have passions. And so for the first 7 years of retirement, we traveled, I golfed, we did all kinds of things together. I mean, we just did it. I was coming close to 70, and I said, I need another passion, something I can do a long time. And, I thought about it, and I picked up photography. Why? I've been in it before, but always my job took me away from it. My wife is an artist. She can do oils and pencils and pastels, and she is awesome. She's creative. And I said, I wonder if I can be creative. And so photography sort of fit the bill. So in 2015, I started looking at photography. I took courses. I had 2 master photographers, professionals that I studied under. And I studied color theory and light and composition and the cameras and all of that stuff. Till one day, when I asked, what's my style? He says, it's right in front of you. I said, wow. So I've carried on since then. About a year after I started photography, I got into the Cibolo Nature Center. That's where I met this character. And in 2018, he came to me, and we debate this. He will say this is not true. But I think he came to me and said, let's do a book. I looked at him and said, book? I thought about doing a freaking book. What's it going to be about? So he told me his idea, which became the title, Replenishing Our Hills. And I thought that was great. I took up photography because not only did I want to be creative, but as Brent said, when we all grew up, our screen time was outside. And that's what led me to be a nature and landscape photographer. I love outside. When I got involved with the Civil Oak and got on their board, or before, what got me excited was our nature preschool, the Nest, that had a one room, and we wanted to raise $10 million and make it a world-class school, which we have now. And we raised $10 million. And those kids get intellectual, social, and behavioral training outside. And that's wonderful. Now it's come full circle. Those kids, their screen time is outdoors. I asked one of the parents one time, what do you like best about our school? She said, we take our son, pick him up, take him home. First thing he does, he runs in the house, sheds his backpack, and goes in the backyard. Smart kid. So anyway, there's a similarity to me getting into photography and us putting together this big nature school, which is world class. The book. The book took 5 years. I sort of say it was the male version of giving birth. In 2019, they asked us to submit the first manuscript and photographs in December. In fact, they asked us on the 6th of December to get it all into us by the end of December. To remind me, the Army, hurry up and wait. So we did. So what happened in January of 2020? Pandemic. In 2022, they came around and said, hey, you can submit an update. So we've been waiting now for almost 3 years. We did submit the update and we pressured them, tried to induce production delivery the first time in 2022. 2023 rolled around, they said it might come, and so we're all anxious. And we're thinking this is going to be the second edition. It didn't get delivered until July of last year. 5 years. So far, we've sold about 60% of the first edition, which is quite good for a 4-pound table book. I think somebody told me they were going to bring theirs today, but it was too heavy. We'll sign something you can put in the book.
I left paper over there on the table.
Yeah, we can
for
do that.
anybody that wants a signature to take home.
I'm fond of saying, if you live in the hill country, which you all do, San Antonio's part of it, this book deserves to be on your table. Why? It goes through the history of the hill country. It goes through the geology of the hill country. It goes through the leaders of conservation, who they were, what they did. And it talks about what are the tools to conserve land that you can use. It talks about the bond propositions, 2 of them that Brent has led in Kendall County. It talks about our nature school. It talks about the nature center. It talks about conservation easements. It talks about our park systems. It covers the gamut. It's also got 337 of my images. So a little bit about my photography, and I'll get back into the book. This is photography today is really a misnomer. It's digital imaging or it's digital art. What's the difference? In the old film days, a person working for the San Antonio Express would go out with a camera and take pictures of people and would develop that film, and that would get printed in the paper as it was. We called it straight out of the camera, because I started out in photography with film. Well, today, it's digitized immediately. It goes onto a card. It's got pixels. That's not the same thing. But people still do digital imaging straight out of that card, and it's printed. It's just faster, it's easier, everything. So digital art is the way that you modify something. Best way to give you that example is I went out in the Hill Country State Parks for almost 2 weeks. I rented an RV. My wife wouldn't set foot on that sucker. So I went alone. I went to the state parks, and I had limited time in each park, right? Photographers chase the light. That's what we do. We love light. We study light. We see what it looks like at 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning, 8 at night, whatever. Well, sometimes you get out there and you got limited time in a place, and the light's not exactly the way you envisioned. And I want to emphasize that. I envision a photograph before I ever bring a camera to my eye. And then I press the shutter. Well, before I make sure I got the settings I want. But that's what I do. I envision what it can be. Because I know that sometimes it's not going to be perfect. I'm going to have to do some editing to make it perfect. I'm known for chasing light and showing you light. I like pictures that are complex. That the first thing that you're going to look at, you look at that happens is you look at this and you look around. You see these beautiful bald cypress trees. Then you see the root system. You see the water. You see the detail. That's what my art is all about. Most of it's color. I do black and white, things like that. Brent said, I'm not in this to make money to retire. Thank God. I sell these are metals, by the way. These are aluminum. You can hang these inside your house or outside your house. That's what's nice about metals. I've sold quite a few metals, various sizes from that big to smaller than these. But people love them, you know. I like them because they enhance the color and everything. So that's one example. Another example is this one. This is a recent one. Actually, this is the second one of this one I did. A lady came in, I'm in the gallery in Bernie. She came in, she said, do you have anything with blue bonnets with a blue sky? Showed her what I had. She says, that's not what I was really looking for. She described it. This picture was originally a sunset picture. So what did I do? I made it a daytime picture. We put the blue sky over the clouds. And she loved it. And she bought it. And that's what this is. Now, is that a photograph? No. You could say it started something like that. But that's not what we call it. So anyway, if any of you are interested, by the way, I have cards. You can see it, how to contact me there. Come to a gallery in Bernie, please. All the proceeds go to the Cibolo. But why is this book important? Well, the Hill Country is 17 counties, 17,000 square miles. Very big. Some say in the next 15 to 20 years, over 70% of the land, which is 78% of it's owned privately, will change hands because of generational change. Do the heirs know what to do with the land? Will they ranch it? Will they farm it? What will they do with it? That's a big question. You know, we get 50% of our water from aquifers. And about 40% comes from rivers and lakes. We've been under, off and on, a drought for 12 years. The Hill Country. Brent talked about, you can go up and see the lakes, like Travis, a lot of them, they're down 50% or more. El Medina Lake is down to 3%. Some say that we may run out of water in the Hill Country by 2030 if this drought continues. They also say that 90% of the new development in the hill country will be in undeveloped lands in the counties of the hill country. That's about 1,300 square miles of potential development, where there was a ranch with one well. Now they might subdivide it into 20 ranchettes, each with 20 wells. So instead of one straw, you got 20 straws. San Antonio, you're getting a lot of your water from a pipeline system that's coming from one of the hill country aquifers 2 miles north of here, where a landowner said, I can pump you as much water as you want because the Texas law is law of capture. And he's pumping that water in a pipeline that was built to come directly into San Antonio to Sauce. And that's something that's happening all over the hill country. We are in an existential challenge to keep some tradition of what we love in this hill country. 40% of our creeks have dried up. Jacob's Well, if you've ever been to it in Wimberley, spring fed. First time it's ever dried up. First time. So what we talk about in the book is so pertinent. What I've taken and shown in image form is what this treasure of this hill country can look like and why we should keep it. I go back to the screen time, and I go back to what Brent said. For our grandkids and our great-grandkids, and our own kids, for their screen time. We'd like to give it to them the same way we got it. So anyway, that's the book, and that's us. Any questions? No? Yes?
So are most of the images in the book straight from the camera, or are they digital?
No, I would say that probably straight from the cards, probably 10%, 15%. Probably 15% came off my iPhone, and the rest came off big cameras. Yeah, that's a fair statement. Anything else?
You mentioned there are about 337 images in the book. How many did you start with to get to that number? And was it a difficult process to choose the ones that you did?
A lot of the pictures in that book are what we call portfolio pictures. In other words, you shot, you've done any edits you want to do, and somebody else that's better at photography than you has said, we published that. It's called a portfolio. And so you got 337 portfolio images. When I started doing this, how many images did I have to shoot to get one portfolio image? When I started, I probably had to shoot 100. Now, when I shoot, it's probably 1 out of 7. But it's been a decade. I'm not getting any younger. I'm 79. It's getting harder to do this. But it's a lot of shooting.
And were some of these shots from private land is it all public land or?
Good question. There are 3 galleries in this of images. One is of public lands, and those could be parks, state, county, city. There's one national park in the hill country, the LBJ National Park. Then there's a gallery on private lands. And the private lands primarily were lands, ranches that were placed under conservation easements. And I got permission to go out there, meet the owners. They took me around and they let me loose. And so I did probably 15 or 20 of those in the hill country. And the final one is examples like our nature school, the nature center, things like that. So it's sort of divided up, if you will.
I know you have your gallery. Do you have any future plans for publishing?
I'm gonna leave that up to Brent, let him publish. We've been asking if we're gonna do a sequel. I don't know what a sequel would be like. I'm not sure I wanna go through that stress again. Publishing is an interesting business. The books we have out there, these books, when they came out, were priced at $65, right? So one day, I'm on Amazon, and I said, oh, let me see if they're selling the book. Sure enough, they sold the book, they got it down to $25.18. I called Texas A&M Press and said, what the hell is coming off? You let them sell at that price. He said, we can't control Amazon, but they've already paid the royalty, so you're still gonna get paid. Well, we buy our books at 40% off, $65, plus shipping, plus tax. Well, now that's kind of weird. And then we said, well, the Cibolo Center for Conservation bought a bunch of our books, about 100 initially. And they paid, I think they paid far less than we. I think they paid $30 a book, 32. No sales tax because they're a nonprofit, but they paid shipping. That's less than us. So a retailer gets a better price than the authors get. Then we saw the Amazon price, so we bought 50 to 100 of them off of Amazon because that's the cheapest price of anything. So we'll sell those books for $30. Hey, great deal. For those of you who bought them at 65, thank you. But you can get another one for 30 to give to your kids. So it's publishing is an interesting gig. I have to admit. It's
I did buy off of Amazon, thank you very much. But anyway, I just encourage everybody to drive to the Hill Country. There's so many people that live in San Antonio, never drive to the Hill Country.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful.
stunning.
There are so many animals, so many birds, the land, the ponds, the rivers. It's just such a beautiful area. And so many people just do not take advantage of what it is.
Yeah, I think it's a case of this is where I am and I'm used to being here, so I'm not gonna wander out. People, is that time?
And the nature center.
People ask me all the time, I'm usually their guide on Facebook, where are the bluebonnets north of us? And so I always travel out every year to see about bluebonnets, because I love photographing our wildflowers. That and our red maples in the fall. Those two things I absolutely adore. But, so this year it happens that what was like last year, zip bluebonnets, except one place. Do you know about Enchanted Rock?
Yes.
Okay. If you walk there's a circumference trail around it. If you walk that circumference trail, you'll see more wildflowers than you knew what to do with. Because it's fed by some nonstop springs, and it's all crushed granite. And our wildflowers love that. So if you're gonna want to see them in a drought, that's one place that I highly recommend public access and everything else. And that leads me to one other thing, which I forgot to mention. Conservation easements normally have said, I got private land, I'm gonna sell the development rights to it, but keep the land. The land title will go to a trust company, and I'll put up some money in the annuity to help maintain it. But me and probably my family can still use that land. Well, as a taxpayer, what do I get out of that? I mean, I can't access that land, right? It's only for that family. Well, quite frankly, what you get is that land's ability to be one big sponge for water that goes down into our aquifers, or goes, if it's next to a river, goes into those rivers, which is why we do these bond proposals. But now the Cibolo Center for Conservation got deeded 30 acres in Sisterdale on the main thoroughfare, and we're making it our first sanctuary. And we're gonna make it a conservation easement. So we are gonna do a combination of public access, public education programs, and preserve the land. And there's a creek that basically runs right through it. So it's a model for what we're gonna do in the future. People in Kendall County who have land, have liked the Cibolo. They've known us. We've been around 37 years. And so we've had a number of them come to us and said, we don't have family to give the land to, we'd like to give it to you. Okay. So now we're hiring a director of land for this. It's pretty incredible, the growth that we've had, but that's one of the ways in which we preserve lands, and one of the pillars of our nonprofit is land conservation. We are buying land, we find donors who want to buy land and put it into conservation easements and preserve it, and that's what we're doing. So anyway, a lot of that private land that I talked about, in the future, hopefully we'll have some public access component to it, which is what we would like. Anybody else?
Well, the nature center is a beautiful spot. It's a wonderful hike or walk for an afternoon if you've not ever seen it.
Yeah, there's tons of pictures in that book out of the Cibolo. These two pictures I showed you, that's on a big private preserve, 1 mile square, beside the Cibolo. That's part of the Cibolo Creek. And
Those are beautiful pictures.
that's it.
Looks like a medieval forest.
You know, it's
Cibolo with it, like,
when you walk down, there's a trail that goes right on the creek.
Uh-huh.
Depending on the light, it can look like that in space. I could do a book just on the bald cypress roots.
I believe it.
Seriously, they are incredible, absolutely incredible. Anyway, thank you all for being patient with us. Thank you for asking us here. And if you have any other questions, you know how to get a hold of us.
I don't know how much speaking you two do, but you make a great pair doing this. You could be doing this. We've all learned a lot, and I'm sure there's a lot of other groups, and people could profit from hearing the information you've given. I've learned a lot. I'm sure I'm not the only one here that has. Thank you so much. I will be back at the table there, and I have left, I got some printer paper back there for anybody that just wants a sheet to insert in a book, or he's brought some books that he's happy to share with us and sign for us. So I'm sure you're both going back there to do that. Thank you much. Summer is soon upon us. Weather-wise, I think it's closer than we think. Maybe this week, right? Have a wonderful summer to everyone, whatever your plans may be, besides reading, of course. And in September, Martha Smith is our first speaker, as usual. She
September
starts
9th.
us off.
September 9th.
Yeah, the 9th. And that will be The German Wife, which I personally recommend. It was a great book. So there you go. Take care of yourself, be healthy, travel safe, and we'll see you then. See you in the fall. Thanks for coming.
Oh, yeah, we do that.